So I'll tell you the original genesis behind reaching out beyond just checking in, see how everything's going. So I was doing some stuff a couple weeks ago and got a news story about Travis Brown. And Travis Brown got released from the UFC. He didn't really get released. His contract just ended. Everyone's like, why is Travis Brown not in the UFC? He hasn't fought in like 7 years. And I was like, contract expired, I guess. Like, he just hasn't been around. I don't know. And someone's like, so what's going on with Joe Lauzon? What's up with his contract? I was like, that's a good question. Let me just ask Joe Lauzon what's going on with his contract. So I was like, let me reach out and catch up. We haven't talked in a little while. And obviously we usually talk, pretty regularly. So I was like, let me just check in on Joe Lauzon. So how is everything, Joe?
Everything's been good. Everything's been good. I've been focused more on my gym than I've been on training. Everyone's always asking like, oh, are you going to fight again? You're not going to fight again. And like, my answer is always kind of like very ambiguous. I don't really know. You know what I mean? Like, if they came, so I wanted to fight Chase Hooper last summer when they were going to come to Boston, and that didn't work out. They don't want to do that. So I don't know. If they came to me with a fight and a matchup that I liked, I'm still training all the time. But I'm not like pressing the issue. So, but I am still under contract.
How does that? Because that was the one question I got, and I don't know that I really have a good answer for in terms of the contract, because I know when you are injured and you say you can't fight, that extends your deal, or if you turn down a fight, that can extend your deal, things like that. But when you're just kind of like in limbo and not really fighting, like, is that just a matter of you telling them, say, hey, keep my contract active, or do they have to like, actively say, hey, or do you still want to be under contract? Because I know there is a clause somewhere in there that it does expire after a certain period of time. I think there is anyways.
So I don't exactly know a valid way to get out of the contract. Not that I'm trying to, but I think that like there's a bunch of reasons that it can kind of freeze or get prolonged, right? So I think it's if you turn down a fight, it's if you are injured, it's if you retire. Those things all like prolong and extend it, right? So from my perspective, I'm not really trying to fight anywhere else, so I don't really care. I'm still in the USADA pool. That's the only thing that's kind of not even annoying, but a little bit annoying. Is I still, I have USADA show up, or not USADA, but the drug-free sport shows up and they test me every once in a while. But otherwise, I mean, I think it's extended like perpetually, like until whenever. I'm in a weird spot where like I don't really care about actively fighting. If they came to the matchup that I liked, I would definitely do it. If it came a matchup I didn't like, I would have no problem saying no, thanks, but no thanks. But I don't exactly know of a way that you can get out, short of just fighting out your contract. And I still have a bunch of fights on my contract.
I'm curious because, like, obviously you've had the same stance for several years now. Like, obviously you had that fight booked with Cowboy. We all know what happened there. You mentioned the Chase Hooper thing last year. How often, like, do you stay in touch with him? Like, do you hit Sean Shelby up every now and again? Does he hit you up every now and again? Because I know, like, Matt Brown, who I do my podcast with regularly, he retired, and like he fought Court McGee last May. And he basically told the UFC, hey, I don't want to fight again until at least the end of the year because he wanted to spend the summer with his kids. So he's like, I don't want to fight, anytime during that time, I want to spend the summer with the kids. And then November came around, December came around, nothing really happened. And then they finally came to him in, I think it was like March or April, and he just didn't get excited by it. He's like, you know what? I think I'm just going to end it because like I didn't get like that feeling of like, man, I can't wait to fight again. And he just decided to walk away. But they stayed in touch that entire time. And he just like, this day works better than this day. And obviously, kind of like yourself, he's a veteran. So he has a little bit more leeway, I guess, where he could say, hey, I kind of feel like fighting on this day versus this day, and they worked with him. So do you still talk to the UFC regularly? Do they reach out and say, hey, Joe, what's going on? Like, how does that work?
Not really. Like I'll talk to Sean Shelby once in a while, more on like Instagram, like responding to stories and stuff like that. But not that I mean, I know I could text them and they get right back to me. I understand them not wanting to do the Chase Hooper thing, right? Because I think that would be a really good matchup for me. And then that might maybe be the last fight I'd want to do. I'd kind of be the same. I'd have that fight, and whether it went good or not, I would kind of be in the same position I'm in now. Like, oh, maybe I'll fight again if something makes sense, and maybe I'm done. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to go and give me a matchup that's favorable for me, and I'm not going to take a matchup that's not favorable for me. So I'm kind of stuck, I guess. But I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally cool. Like, UFC's been great to me. I'm not upset about being like, I don't feel like I'm stuck. I don't feel like I'm like locked or anything. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It's probably likely that I won't fight again. But I hate when people say they go and retire, because I mean, how many times people retire, they say they're going to retire, and the next thing you know, they're announced on a card 6 months, a year later, whatever it's going to be. So I'm still training all the time. I'm still, helping guys get ready for fights. I still run my gym, so I'm helping. Like I was helping Peter Barrett get ready for a fight this morning. So I'm always helping guys. I'm always working with guys. And if they came and offered me something and I had ample time, I know I could get back in shape really quick and be good to go.
You're a rare instance, Joe, where you kind of always set yourself up for later in your career where you didn't have to fight. Like we've talked about this many times, the success of your gym, and that's kind of what you've been doing for the several years now. This is going back even during your fighting career. And I know, not to keep bringing up Matt, but Matt's in the same situation. He opened his gym, and now he's actually they're renovating his gym, and he's actually excited to be able to put just all his time in gym. Because he's like, when I was in fight camp, I couldn't do the gym. I had to basically hand off all the responsibilities. And now that he's retired, he's renovating the gym, he's building it up, and he's, getting, kind of making it the way he always wanted to when he was fighting, and he really couldn't do that. So you've kind of set yourself up. So you've always had that same attitude of yeah, if it comes to me, I will. But, as you said, it's likely you probably won't fight again, but it seems like this was all part of the plan of you've set yourself up for a career that doesn't necessarily revolve around fighting anymore.
Yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, I always, I had my first fight in the UFC, and I thought that could have been it. Right when I fought Jens Pulver, that could have been a one and done, and we're over. And then I have been very fortunate that I always I was never chasing the next fight to pay my bills. Right, I have a computer science degree, so I was working at my co-op while I was getting ready for the Jens Pulver for my first fight, and then I basically took a week off of work, and I went and I fought. I went back to work on Monday. And I continued to work. Then I went on the Ultimate Fighter, and I took a leave of absence for 2 months, and then I went back to work. And so I kind of always had a little bit of a nest egg, kind of an overflow a little bit of covering expenses and things like that. And then as I had all my different fights, I was kind of doing the same thing, right? I was always kind of just building up a reserve, keeping that reserve up, and then time goes on and it gets a little smaller, but then you fight again and it gets it back up. I think a lot of fighters, they don't kind of start from that stronger position. So it's they have to take this fight, next month, because they need to pay their bills. They need to pay their expenses. They got to pay stuff, and I've always kind of been ahead of the game a little bit. So I think that just because I started kind of in a better position, I was able to kind of keep that going. And that let me focus on my gym a little bit more. And I didn't need to make a lot of money out of my gym. So for a long time, my gym didn't make any money. And then once I realized I was kind of getting closer to the end of fighting, I started focusing on the gym more, and instead of working on arm locks and in my boxing and wrestling and stuff like that, I started focusing on business stuff and how to run the gym better and how to do this better. And it just kind of I've always just kind of stayed ahead of the game just a little bit, and it's worked out. I've been really fortunate. It's worked out really well for me.
And when people hear owning a gym, they immediately think, oh, well, you're training fighters to fight in the UFC. And I can't remember when it was, maybe a year ago. I can't remember the timeline, but I do remember seeing you corner one of your guys in the UFC. I can't remember the timeline of it, but I remember seeing you there. But people don't understand, and I'm not, that's no one's fault necessarily, but because you're a UFC fighter and obviously been around the UFC, people think, oh, you're training fighters to fight in the UFC. But I know from plenty of experience talking to fighters who own gyms, you don't make your money as a fight team. You make your money from the kid who wants to come in and learn jiu-jitsu, the parents who want to say, I want to learn self-defense, I want to learn how to kick, I want to learn, I want to learn how to kickbox a little bit just for fun, just for, losing weight, whatever the case may be. And I know, when you text me your scheduling, you have a lot of things. When people hear gym, they immediately think, oh, you're training the next generation of UFC fighters. I know that's not, now I'm not saying you don't have that, that capability, but your gym, I know, has grown so far beyond just being a quote unquote, factory for MMA fighters.
Yeah. I mean, we have I have roughly 400 members at the gym. 160 of those are kids, and another 250 are adults. Right. But of those 250 adults, very few have any ambition to fight whatsoever. We have maybe 15 to 20 that are serious about, they want to train, they want to fight. Maybe maybe we got, some guys that are super serious. I definitely want to train and I definitely want to fight. So I'm I would maybe think about fighting if things made sense and I had a matchup and blah, blah, blah. But most of our members are not. It's we're because here's the thing is that fighters don't have money, right? You can't pay your bills. If I could go and focus on fighters, but I'm of all these guys that have a great room, all these fighters that are very, very good, that are, dedicated, ambitious, all sort of stuff. And none of them have any money to pay the rent for the gym because they're spending all their time training to fight and not doing other stuff. Right. So My gym it's mostly like we have a lot of really good like wrestlers and athletes and things like that. But we got a lot of just like regular everyday people. I got like insurance adjusters and private detectives and police officers and firefighters and school teachers and MIT graduates and people that own businesses and personal trainers. Like we have like a lot of like regular people. And then we have a couple fighters mixed in, but that's really not that's not the target of our business. That's not our customer avatar. We want people that, have good jobs that can pay us. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I'm trying to make money with my gym, so I need them to, be able to pay. And fighters just generally don't have that.
Yeah. Do you find a passion in teaching though? Because I know like teaching isn't for everybody. And I know there's some guys who say like, I'm just not built for it. I always joke because I have an English literature degree. Like everyone's like, oh, you're going to become a teacher. And I'm like, yeah, I could go get my teaching certificate tomorrow. And then I'd be around a group of children and I'd want to just drive off a cliff because I'm just not a teacher. I'm just not that guy. I know I'm not that guy. But obviously, again, you're an incredibly high level fighter, fought at the highest level of the sport in the UFC. But when you're teaching the insurance adjuster or a teacher who comes in and says, hey, I want to learn jiu-jitsu, you're not teaching them at a black belt level. Now, maybe they eventually get there, but obviously you're teaching, you're going from like the very novice of like beginners, but you are getting to more advanced. But do you find passion in teaching? Because I know it kind of goes, and I know obviously you have other coaches at your gym and things like that, but like, do you find a passion in coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like it a lot. Like, so I really like teaching the kids. So I teach the 6 to 9 year olds right now. Because my son Joey's that age. My son Joey's 10, so he's in that 6 to 9. He's on the small side, so he's in that 6 to 9 class. And like I really enjoy teaching his class. I enjoy like seeing like little kids like make that connection and things clicking and things like that. So I like teaching that age right now. My son Joey's going to move up pretty soon to like the next older age group, and then my son Jacob, Joey and Jake their classes go at the same time right now. So I teach Joey, but I can't teach Jake because at the same time. But when Jake moves up to the middle age kids, then I will teach Jake's class and then I'll teach Joey's class. And I really enjoy working with the kids. That might change once my kids are a little bit older and I might not want to be teaching kids classes as much anymore. But right now I really, really enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with kids those ages. And then I like adults and I like we got tons of women that come in that are like nurses and doctors and things like that. Like I like working with them too, because they might actually need to use jiu-jitsu, right? We got tons of firefighters and paramedics and things like that. Tons of police officers. They're going to use jiu-jitsu, maybe not in a cage in a fight, but they're going to use jiu-jitsu at some point, probably within the next year, 2 years. There's going to be some kind of incident where they're going to run into, where they're going to have to, control someone. And, so I really enjoy that part of it. I know some fighters just like, they're not into it. They're just the way my brain is. Like my brain is like very good at kind of developing systems and order and, just getting things organized and figuring, okay, we should teach this and then this and this and building blocks. And we go from there. And I really enjoy that part of it. I run a gym, but like, I teach like Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 to 11. And then 11 to 12, I work with the fighters a little bit, depending on who has stuff coming up. And then I teach kids classes from 5 to 6, like Monday, Wednesday. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I'm teaching classes. But I spend a lot of time kind of organizing the gym and getting things run and putting things in place and, adjusting things and planning that stuff. And like, there's a lot more that goes into it. Like, I think a lot of people, they think like, oh, you're running a gym. It's just me. Like you said, it's me just teaching classes and doing sparring and running workouts. And that's like such a very, very small piece of it. But the same way my brain got obsessed with getting better at jiu-jitsu and get better at fighting, my brain has now kind of shifted to how to run the business better. Right. And I have a bunch of friends that have gyms and I've tried to help them out a little bit and they've had really good success on running things better. And so it's like, this has been kind of like my primary objective the last couple of years has been trying to, get better at running the business part of things. Because if all these Taekwondo schools can have all these like 19 locations and these, the places look like museums, they're so nice because they're so beautiful and they're making so much money. We can do the same exact thing with jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts and stuff that's a little bit more effective.
Not that you need more added to your plate of things you're already doing as a dad and as a business owner, but have you ever thought about, like, I don't know, no seminar is the right word or classes. I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, but like, have you ever contemplated like speaking or working with other fighters? Cause I feel like there's a lot of fighters who don't have that plan of like, what do I do when fighting is done? And I know like a lot of fighters, like even opening the gym thing, like they think opening a gym, it's just going to be like, well, that's just the plan. You don't have a business plan though. You're like, just putting your name on a gym doesn't mean you're going to be successful. But we do see, and I mean, there's cautionary tales left and right in the sport of guys who don't understand or don't know what to do when fighting is over. And that's what draws them back a lot of times where, like you said, like they don't have the option where they can't fight. Like they just like, I have to fight because that's how I make my money. I don't have another outlet of that. And again, I know other guys do have other businesses, Daniel Cormier, I think he owns like barbershops and restaurants and things like that. But have you ever thought about that? Because I know the UFC used to do that. They used to have that once a year seminar where they would teach you about taxes and media and blah, blah, blah. But I'm curious because you're one of the few guys who really did. You always had a plan for the future, even when you were very young in your UFC career. But you do see, and it kind of breaks my heart when I see guys who just like, they have no plan. Like they're fighting. They can't retire because if they retire, the money stops. And like, I'm curious, like, have you ever thought about that? Because I feel like you'd be such a great mind for that to help guys like prepare for that next phase of their careers.
Yeah. So I have paid for coaching groups to, try to learn how to like run your school better. Right. And some of these groups are expensive. You're paying, $500 or $1,000 a month to like run your business better. And it seems like it's a lot of money per month, but like it ends up like bringing money back like tenfold. Right. So it's like, it definitely makes sense. I think at some point I'll probably definitely do something along those lines. Right now I have my one gym and I would like to, I'm definitely going to start a second and a third gym probably in the next like year or two. But I would like to have done that first before I go and, start telling other people how to do it too. Right. Cause like, usually it's like people that can do, people that can't teach. Right. I want to say, okay, like I'm actively doing this. It's not just my one gym. And because I'm there, and that's not the reason we're successful. I want to get a second gym up and running and have it running well and make sure everything we're doing is dialed in as tightly as I think it is, and have like proof of concept a little bit and be like, have a second spot where like I'm not there very much or at all. And it still runs and chugs right along and makes good money. So I definitely think I will do that, but just from a kind of like a confidence standpoint, I think I'd rather open up that second location and kind of have like a little bit more proof that, hey, what I'm saying is going to work, and then we'll go from there.
Are you sticking in New England, like for the new gyms, and where you're thinking about like plotting those out? Or are you going to expand further out, or?
I would definitely be open to expanding further out, but I'll definitely stick to like New England. I'll stick close, like somewhere in Massachusetts, for the first couple, because like it's all math, right? You know what I mean? If I'm making like 20% of my gym's income on the first gym, but I'm there a lot, right? I could if I could make 10% on these other gyms, but I could have like 6 of them, I make way more money, right? It's all just simple math. So I kind of think I want to get like, I think for the next gym, it'll be like semi close to my current gym. So I can kind of offload some of those members off to there. So you can kind of start with a little bit of a base. And then we'll just go from there. But I'm definitely like, I think long-term, I'd love to open up like this big, huge affiliation of like all these different gyms and kind of give like, I understand you guys, there's tons of people that know how to run a jiu-jitsu class or a kickboxing class or whatever it may be, but they have no idea about how to run the business part of things. Right. And I can kind of help like kind of simplify things and cut through all the BS. And like, here's the plan, do this and this and this, and things will go and they will run and they'll go great. So I'm sure I'm going to do that at some point. But I think the first step is going to be, okay, get a couple more Lauzon MMAs going, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned earlier, like, there's a good likelihood you're not going to fight again, and that's really not your focus. Like, you still train, but that's not really your focus. Mm-hmm. But do you feel like the break, for lack of a better word, where you've just been kind of focusing on that, like, do you feel like that's been a huge difference in what you're doing now and the success of your gym now versus, let's say, in like 2017, 2016, when you were much more active in your career? Because just like I said with Matt, like when he was fighting, he just couldn't put the time into it. Like, he had to train to fight, so he couldn't focus on like, hey, I need to bring in more members, I need to do advertising here, I need to do this, blah, blah, blah. It was all focused on fighting. Do you feel like these last, like, I know, like, it's only been 5 years since you fought, but obviously you were preparing for the Cerrone fight, so you had times where you were preparing for fights, but do you feel like this last few years has really allowed you to build the gym where your full focus isn't on, I got to get ready for the next one?
Yeah. So, so the way my gym is currently, right, I could step away for several months and it would not skip a beat. Like everyone's in place. Everyone knows what's going on. We have like all these systems in place, and this is how we do this and this and this. And like, I think sometimes it's like, it's not like overkill, but it's like, oh, like, why do we have to have this playbook on how we open the gym? Like, we open the doors, you turn on the lights, you do this, but it's like, how do we have to have this playbook on how we clean the mats? How do we have to have this playbook on how we clean the bathrooms, whatever it's going to be, right? But we have everything very organized and structured So I could literally take off. I could not be at my gym for 3 months, right? Like maybe text and email a little bit with people and let them know what's going on. But for the most part, things would chug right along and would not skip a beat at all. And I think that like as time goes on, thank you.
You're welcome.
As time goes on, I think that because I can step away, I can kind of plan things out a little bit better, and I can focus. I can put all my attention into like, so where my gym is now. I basically do all the planning for the upcoming year in like August, September, October. I'll spend a little bit of time playing out. And I can tell you like once October comes, I'll be able to tell you like, okay, on December 6th, 2025, it's going to be a Thursday, and we're going to teach this lesson to the kids, and we're going to talk about this, and we're going to do this, and this is what's going to be planned, and like everything's already kind of like laid out. And because I do all that, that gives me like a ton of freedom to do. Like I could just disappear for 2 months, and things would just continue right along. And I think that like planning out and having that kind of game plan just makes a huge difference for everything. So it helps. It's just order and systems just make such a big difference.
Yeah. Now you mentioned both of your sons are training now. And I know I don't want to speak for you. I'd imagine maybe I'm correct in this, maybe I'm not. I don't know. You tell me. But I know a lot of when you're successful in one business, it's the whole. I know the whole nepotism conversation you started. I said, what business does a son or a daughter not follow their parents into that business? It's very common. If your dad's a lawyer, you probably have a better chance of going to law school. That's just very common. Yep. How do you feel about your, like, obviously, like, not say they're going to become pro fighters, but like, how is it with them doing jiu-jitsu and like, cause you said your son Joey's 10, like that's getting to the age where he's going to start, advancing. Like that's where you're starting to get to like the age of like where you could compete, things like that. How do you feel about your kids doing that? And is it something they're very passionate about? Is it something they have fun with? Like, how do they do it? Because that's dad's business. Like that's what you do.
Hey, Joey, come here. Come here. I know his real answer. We'll see what he tells you. Come here. Okay. Come here. We're doing a video. Do you like jiu-jitsu?
Yes.
How much do you like jiu-jitsu?
Incredibly.
He's lying. He's lying. You don't love jiu-jitsu. You like jiu-jitsu, but you don't love jiu-jitsu, right? Really? You have some days you don't love jiu-jitsu?
Well, sometimes.
Yeah. But overall you like it though, right?
Yeah. Mostly I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Awesome. Okay. Thanks.
Some days I'm the best.
Some days you are the best. Yeah. No, I mean like, so we run you're good. Thank you. So we run like our classes. Like I try to not be the parent that's like pushing like Joey there's some classes where he does not want to be there for sure. Like yesterday was a day where like, he bumped his chin on someone pretty hard. He wasn't thrilled about being there after, and I try to not push him too much. I'm like, you got to finish our class, but I understand it sucks sometimes. You got to kind of deal with it, whatever, and I think it's important to like, if you start something, you're going to kind of finish it. Right. I tell him like, as soon as you get your black belt, you can quit jiu-jitsu. Right. It's like, take him 20 years. But, but I would like to see them. Like, I don't have aspirations for like, oh, I want them to be fighters. Like, I don't think they quite understand it sometimes. They're like, Joe will say to me like, when I'm in the UFC, when I fight, and like, it kind of makes me a little happy that he maybe wants to do it, but I'm not going to like push him into doing it. Like if he wants to do it, cool. If he doesn't, that's totally cool too. But he does, I do think he likes jiu-jitsu though. So I do think that like, I'm hoping that I can build like this big empire of schools, and then he can kind of help take it over and go with it and run it, and I think it's like, especially like nowadays, like college is so expensive. I mean, if I could not saddle him with all that debt and I could, kind of set him up for success later on and, and let him learn all of the, the smaller parts. Like he helps with the younger kids sometimes. Like he likes helping out. His brother Jake is in the tiny ninjas class, and the classes go at the same time. So every once in a while, Joey would be like, oh, can I go help tonight instead of taking class? And then we'll let him sometimes. I don't always let him, but sometimes I let him. So he definitely like enjoys that. And he's definitely like in his element, like helping little kids and things like that. So I think he'll be into it, but who knows? We'll see. But I'm not going to like force him into it. Like I hate it when I see parents do that. It drives me nuts. Like no one cares that you have the best 8-year-old on the planet, at jiu-jitsu right now. Like, let's see if they still like jiu-jitsu when they're 12, because they're probably not going to like it.
Do they do any other sports?
So they both done flag football. And that's pretty much it. Because honestly, so my job is a little hard because Katie's a nurse, so she's on like a rotating schedule. So she works days, nights, mostly days, but her days that she works vary every week. So it's kind of hard. So for me, I have to be in the gym. I'm only teaching I only teach 2 afternoons. So Monday, Wednesday. So I have to be there those nights. I can't not be there those nights. I have to be there those nights. So it's hard for me to go and get them in other sports because like baseball, it's a regular schedule. Like I can't just take off, 3 months or 2 months to just, go and do that. Like, I think the gym would be okay without me, but I feel like I want to be there. So it's a little bit harder for me, to do other stuff with them, but they do flag football. That's on weekends, on the mornings and things like that. So they do a couple of things, but mostly jiu-jitsu.
You never know what they're going to get into because Matt has twins, and one twin is way into wrestling. He wants to be a fighter. He trains all the time. He's huge. Like basically, he's becoming his father. His other son is a golfer. So now Matt Brown plays golf, and it freaks me out to see him playing golf. I'm like, dude, you play golf now. Like, this is so weird to me that Matt Brown, the savage UFC fighter, is a golfer, and he's got like the full golf outfit and the hat. And I'm just That's funny. So you just never know where your kids are going to go.
That's awesome. And I think you gotta kind of just expose your kids to different things and kind of see what they like and just, let them run with it. Like Joey's super into playing, like he's playing Fortnite right now. Like he loves playing video games. Like what little kid doesn't love video games, right? But he's super into it. He's really good. Right. So like maybe he'll want to do something with that. I don't know. But I definitely like to get back to the beginning. Like I do think I would like him to be involved with like running some kind of gym because like if I can give him like this good business I can kind of like hand him or let him kind of like help run with. I think that would be great. And I'd love to have like more contact with him. Like, so my dad has a business, as a fishing business. And I that was my first job. I started working there when I was like 12 or 13. Like, and I wasn't there on my own, but I was there working. I was behind the counter. I was selling fish, selling shiners and selling worms and running people in the register and things like that. So loading trucks. There are a lot of, I got a lot out of that. From a young age. And like, I'm going to get Joey to do the same thing kind of with the gym and kind of just learn about it. And, I don't know. I think any kid that follows in their parents' footsteps for business stuff, I think it's because like, you can kind of like, I can take him when he's like 12 or 13, like, oh, go do this, go do that. I need this done. Go do this, and they kind of just kind of get like introduced to it like slowly. And then I think a lot of times because they're introduced to it slowly, they kind of like it. So. Yeah,
absolutely. Can I ask before I let you go, Joe, like in terms of obviously like your focus seems to be primarily obviously, being a dad, being a husband, but also running your gym. How much do you pay attention to the sport at this point? Like, because obviously you do have fighters you train who do go and fight. So I know that's real. But again, as I said, that's not your main business. So how much do you pay attention to the sport these days? Like, do you still watch events? Do you still like follow the sport? Because I know a lot of guys don't. Like I always remember talking to Derek Lewis and I'd be like, what do you think of this guy? He's like, I don't even know who that is. Like he didn't follow the sport at all. Like he trains and works as a fighter, but he doesn't follow the sport. So like how much do you pay attention to the sport now? Like when you're just in your day-to-day life?
I don't follow super closely at all. There's a lot of times where like I hate that pay-per-views are so late. Like they start like East Coast, they start at 10 o'clock. They're over at 1 a.m. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be like, I'm up early every day. I'm up at like, I wake up between like 5:30 and 6, like just naturally on my own. And then I'm up and I'm good for the day. So to stay up until 1 o'clock, just like, it kind of sucks. So I don't follow super close. Like if there's like, if there's like a good fight, I jump on Reddit in the morning after a fight every single time though. Right. And I check out the finishes. There's always like gifs of the finishes or whatever. So I'll check out all the finishes. I'll see like TikToks of fights and things like that. And then if there's a really good fight, I'll go back and I'll watch it the next day or something. But for the most part, I'm not super up to date on stuff. Like there's obviously there's guys that like I know that I've been friendly with or I've trained with and things like that. And then I pay very close attention to them. But for the most part, I'm not super hip to all the different, who's fighting. I couldn't tell you most of the champs at all right now. I have no idea. But I do love fighting. I just, it's kind of like, it's almost like it's way duller, like watching fighting after you've had so many fights and you've been in there so many times. It's just that like, I can't get as excited for someone else's fight. Like I get really excited for my fight or my guys' fights, but to go and get excited for like someone that I just don't know, that I have no connection to, it's just not the same.
Yeah. Well, listen, we catch up every now and again because I know, so at some point, and I'm sure you probably still get like when you post on Instagram, you still immediately get on every post someone being like, "Are you coming back? Are you fighting again?" But I've always loved your perspective of like, I don't know that I'll ever retire because I don't want to use that word. And I just, like, and so I like catching up every now and again. Cause like I said, I people still ask, like I said, that's what happened now. Someone's like, what's going on with Joe Lauzon? I was like, that's a good question. Let me reach out to Joe Lauzon and just ask him. So I'm just happy you're happy and doing well, man. Obviously, I think that's, I think that's awesome to hear. And that's one of the reasons I like talking to you so much is because like, I like shining a light on the people who have made it in this sport, not necessarily like you won all your money from fighting, but also you've made a career for yourself after fighting. And again, like I said, man, I understand. I actually appreciate your perspective so much when it comes to fighting and saying like, hey, I may fight again, I may not fight again, but that door is always open. Hopefully one day you may use the word only so you don't have the drug tester showing up at your house like 6 a.m. But outside of that, man, I love that you always leave the door open and, the sport will welcome you back with open arms if you ever decide to fight again.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, I'm leaving the door open for now. I think all the time, like, it would be great, like, if I got out of the USADA pool, like, what are all these stem cell things I can do? What are this other stuff? Like, I'll go fly somewhere and have them like inject like my knee with something and make me like, superhuman and help all the healing and stuff like cartilage and stuff like that. Like, I think about that part all the time. That's like, that would honestly be like the number one reason though I would probably end up like telling the UFC, hey, like, I'm done, I'm out, cut me for now. And then maybe come back later or something like that. But like, I just think about all that kind of stuff. Cause like, I definitely like obviously I had a problem with my knee locking up with a cowboy fight. And that's happened a couple of times since then. And like, I got a sore shoulder sometimes and things like that. Like there's a lot of little things like that I can definitely like, I would love to just be like, hey, I'm not worried about drug testing. Give me the good stuff. Give me this, give me that. Like, that would probably be like the number one reason to kind of like pull me out of there. But I just think, but it's always great catching up with you too. I always like talking, hanging out, but it's always good to catch up.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad things are going well, Joe. Like I said, man, I always like catching, checking in, seeing how things are going. I appreciate your time. And, man, keep up what you're doing, man. And let me know when the new gym's open. Like I said, man, that's awesome. They're doing well. So always happy to hear about that kind of stuff as well, man. And obviously, glad the family's doing well. Glad the gyms are doing well. And stay in touch. I'm sure we'll do another one of these in the near future.
For sure. I'm down always.
All right, Joe. Talk soon.
All right. Sounds good.